interesting thing that you propose is a navigator. Was it a
Oh
digital
yeah,
navigator?
the digital navigator. And
Yeah.
so this is a position which wasn't my creation. This is Dr. Mamoon Chowdhury. She's down in Atlanta, Georgia at Emory. And I had a wonderful conversation with her. And she's a very thoughtful scientist who has been working in the space of social media. So using social media to be able to predict useful clinical outcomes. Like she started in postpartum depression, right? She recognized that many of her friends who, were pregnant, they always announced that they were pregnant on social media, like the ultrasound picture or whatever they would have put up. And then she was curious. She was like, okay, does the way someone expresses themselves online before and after the birth of their child, could that data be predictive of an outcome like postpartum depression? And so, in order to gather all of this data, she and her research group piloted a position called a digital navigator. And so, this digital navigator is almost like a social worker who is able to kind of describe what's going on in the system of digital space. And so, they'll sit down with a patient or a research participant, go over the type of data that is being proposed, which type of data they want to collect, and then they can discuss how long they want it collected for, both in the future and in the past. Like, for example, do you want to share a month, 2 months, a year, all the way to the beginning of time for your Facebook account? Like how much of that data and how far in the future you want to go? Like, do you consent for 2 months, 10 months, however? And then also the digital navigator would, in the future be able to step the patient through the consent process in terms of who has access to that data,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can envision a situation where a patient might come into a psychiatrist's clinic, and the psychiatrist might have a digital navigator that then discusses with the patient whether the cardiology team or the gastroenterology team or whomever would also have access to the data. And so the goal of all of this, and I feel like this is essential if this sort of data is going to become useful. The goal would be to establish a very clear understanding of what's being gathered, who has access to it, and for how long, so as to be able to have a good therapeutic relationship with the patient. Because, like I mentioned with the cardiologist, yeah, cardiologists have a lot of tools and gizmos, but at the end of the day, whether the patient takes their statin or their antihypertensive, there's a large large part of that relationship depends on a relationship, right? Being able to have an alliance with the patient, being able to communicate with them, and have shared goals. And so unfortunately, this isn't really a conversation that's happening in the digital world right now, which is one
Right.
of the reasons why I wanted to bring attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to make sure people understand that the digital navigator is a job. It's a
Yeah,
person. It's going to
right.
be a new career out there.